guys, what's up? It's time for our next lesson about Daniel. But today's lesson is more about Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These are Daniel's friends that have kind of been with him the entire time. They went through the training with him. In our last lesson, they prayed alongside him, and God revealed what King Nebuchadnezzar's dream was and what it meant. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they've been in the story the entire time, and Daniel has been put in charge of all the wise men. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're very important too. They are also in the king's court, and they have very high positions as well. And anytime someone new comes along and starts doing a really good job, some people that have been doing that same job for a while can maybe get jealous. And that's exactly what's going on in this story. There are a lot of wise men in King Nebuchadnezzar's court that are from Babylon, and they've worked under the king for a really long time, and they're kind of jealous that these foreigners, these new guys, have the same amount of authority as they do. And so they're really kind of looking for a way to get them in trouble. They know they probably can't get Daniel in trouble because he's literally kind of their boss, but they're hoping that they can at least get to Daniel by getting his friends in trouble. And they see the opportunity come to get these guys in trouble when King Nebuchadnezzar decides to build a huge statue of himself, a statue that's 90 feet tall. And if it's hard for you to think of how tall that is, this statue would be the entire length of a basketball court. So it's a really big statue, and King Nebuchadnezzar not only built a statue of himself, he also wants the people in the land to bow down to it. So at the same time, every day, they're going to hear kind of like the sound of a trumpet, and everyone is supposed to bow down to it. And the other men in King Nebuchadnezzar's court, they know, don't they? They know how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel, they always follow God's laws first, don't they? So they know that they are never going to bow down to the statue. So they decide to watch them closely so that they can get them in trouble with the king. So they're keeping a really sharp eye on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the trumpet sounds, and everybody bows down to the statue, except three people, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refuse to bow down. They know that it's not okay to bow down and worship a false god, so they refuse. They stand while everyone else is bowing, but these other wise men, these other men in King Nebuchadnezzar's court, they see them, and of course they run back and tell the king, totally tattletelling on them, right? They run back to King Nebuchadnezzar and tell him that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow down to your statue, even after you made it a law that everyone has to bow down to it. And this makes King Nebuchadnezzar really mad. And if you guys are remembering our story last week, you probably think this sounds crazy that King Nebuchadnezzar even wants them to do this, right? Just in our last story, when Daniel was able to reveal the dream and its meaning, King Nebuchadnezzar told him, your God is a God above all others. And he rewarded Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? But nonetheless, now he's still really mad that they're refusing to bow down to his statue. So he calls for them, and he says, I'm going to give you one more chance. If you don't bow down to my statue, you will all three be thrown into the fiery furnace. And what God could ever save you from that? And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, number one, are not afraid at all. They tell the king they know for certain that their God could save them from that, and that even if he didn't, they would still never bow down to the statue. And this makes Nebuchadnezzar even more mad because they've just told him to his face there's no way they're going to do it. So he has the furnace heated up as high as it'll go, and he has his soldiers take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he has them thrown into a furnace. This furnace is so hot, guys, that even the soldiers that threw them in died because it was so hot. They just got close to it. They didn't go in, but the men who forced Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in, they ended up dying because the furnace was so hot. The three Hebrew men, they're in the furnace, and King Nebuchadnezzar is looking. He's looking into the fire, and he sees them. He sees that they're okay, and then he asks his guards, didn't we just throw 3 people into the furnace? I see 4. And the 4th person looks like someone from heaven. And King Nebuchadnezzar calls into the furnace, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, come out. And they do. They walk right out of that fiery furnace. And once again, King Nebuchadnezzar is in awe of how powerful the God that Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel serve. Again, he has seen what the one true God can do. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't just not die. They weren't hurt at all. Even the clothes they were wearing weren't singed or burnt at all. It looked as if they had never even went near fire. And so King Nebuchadnezzar is so amazed that God has clearly sent someone down to save them from the fire. He even makes a new rule that anyone who says anything against the God that Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel serve will be killed. Isn't this such an amazing Bible story? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they knew that all they had to do was bow down to the statue, and they knew that they didn't even have to mean it. All they would have to do was just bow down, and King Nebuchadnezzar would have been happy, but they refused, didn't they? They refused, even after he told them that he was going to kill them. They totally trusted that God would save them, and they weren't afraid, were they? That's probably the part of the story that means so much to me, is how much they weren't afraid. They didn't beg King Nebuchadnezzar to change his mind. They didn't back down and try to compromise at all. They just completely trusted that God was going to help him, and he did. And even when King Nebuchadnezzar saw this, he completely believed in the power of the God that they served. And these Bible stories about Daniel and his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are such awesome reminders to trust God, aren't they? If those guys could trust God when they're about to be thrown into actual fire, we can trust God every day of our lives, can't we? Thank you so much for watching these lessons on Daniel and his friends. We'll be learning more about Daniel next week. I will see you guys on Sunday for our next lesson in Under Construction. I miss all of you guys, and I can't wait to see you again. See you later. Bye.